My wife lied about her past and cheated on me while I was at work. So I left the divorce papers in her lunch bag and blocked her everywhere. I'm a 31-year-old guy, and for most of my adult life, I've been chasing one thing: stability. I grew up in chaos, unpredictable jobs, broken relationships, constant uncertainty. So when I met Megan, I thought my life had finally found its anchor. It was at a corporate networking event. Nothing glamorous, just a dull evening of handshakes and fake smiles. But then she walked in, confident, graceful, and with this warmth that drew people in. When she laughed at one of my awkward jokes, I felt something click that hadn't in years. We talked the entire night, about everything from travel dreams to favorite books. What struck me most was how genuine she seemed. "I'm done with games," she said, sipping her wine. "I just want something real." I remember thinking, God, me too. For the first time in a long time, I felt understood. Within months, we were inseparable. Weekend getaways, inside jokes, cooking dinners together while music played in the background. It was effortless, like we'd been waiting for each other all along. She told me bits about her past, an ex who treated her badly, a few years of figuring herself out, moving cities to start over. Nothing unusual, really, but there were moments, tiny inconsistencies that didn't fit. Once she mentioned living in Boston during 2016, then later said she'd been in Chicago that same year. Another time she paused too long when I asked about her family, brushing it off with a quick, "It's complicated." Still, I ignored it. We all have chapters we'd rather forget, right? I told myself what mattered was who she was now. Within a year, we were married. I remember standing at the altar watching her walk toward me, feeling like the luckiest man alive. Back then, I didn't know the woman walking down that aisle wasn't exactly who she said she was. It started small, so small I almost laughed it off. A few months after the wedding, Megan became distant. Not cold, just distracted. She'd scroll through her phone late at night, the glow lighting up her face while I pretended to sleep beside her. If I asked who she was texting, she'd smile and say, "Just work stuff, babe." And I believed her, because I wanted to. But the cracks began to show. She started avoiding certain topics, especially anything about her past. I remember one evening at dinner, we were talking about old college stories, and I casually asked where she went to school. She froze for half a second before saying, "Oh, it was a small college, nothing worth remembering." Then she quickly changed the subject. I brushed it off, but something about the way her tone shifted stayed with me. At first, I told myself I was overthinking. Maybe she just didn't like talking about it. Maybe she had bad memories. But it kept happening. These little inconsistencies that didn't make sense. Her work schedule didn't match what she told me. Her stories about her old job changed depending on the day. Once, when I asked how long she'd been with her company, she said 3 years, but later she mentioned a project from 5 years ago at the same place. When I brought it up, she laughed, kissed my cheek, and said, "You really pay attention, don't you?" Then she distracted me by pulling me close, whispering things that made my suspicions melt away for a while. Still, the feeling lingered, like a faint itch I couldn't scratch. I'd catch her staring into space, lost in thought, or stepping out to take calls that couldn't wait. Every instinct told me something was off, but love makes you blind in the cruelest ways. And deep down, I knew those tiny cracks were only the beginning. Over time, the warmth that once defined our marriage began to fade. It wasn't sudden. It was like watching the color drain out of a painting one day at a time. Megan used to wait up for me when I worked late, greeting me at the door with a hug or a sarcastic, "You and your spreadsheets again." But now, the house was quiet when I came home. The lights were off. She'd already be in bed, facing the other way. I tried to bridge the gap. I'd cook dinner, plan movie nights, even take her out to the places she used to love, but she always had an excuse. "I'm exhausted," she'd say, or, "Can we just do this another time?" I'd force a smile and say, "Sure," pretending it didn't sting. The silence between us grew heavier each night. One Friday, I came home early, thinking I'd surprise her with her favorite takeout. Her car was in the driveway, but the house was empty. I called her. No answer. Hours later, she came in, startled to see me. "Where were you?" I asked. She hesitated, then said, "Out with co-workers? We had drinks after work." "Which co-workers?" I pressed. She frowned. "Does it matter?" It shouldn't have, but it did. Her perfume lingered stronger than usual, and her lipstick looked freshly applied. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every lie I might have missed. The next week, she started working late more often. Saturday mornings became errand days, and Sunday brunches turned into solo outings because she needed space. I wanted to confront her, but fear held me back, the fear that I might be right. I told myself marriages go through phases. Maybe we'd bounce back, but somewhere inside, a quiet voice whispered the truth. This wasn't a phase. It was a drift, and I was losing her. It happened by accident, one of those moments that shatter the fragile piece you've been clinging to. I was cleaning the dresser one afternoon while Megan was out running errands. I opened her drawer to straighten it, and that's when I saw it. An old ID card wedged beneath a pile of scarves. The photo was unmistakably her, but the name wasn't. Melissa Turner. My stomach dropped. For a few seconds, I just stared at it, my mind scrambling for logic. Maybe it was an old fake ID. Maybe it was a friend's. But the picture, the birth date, it was her. My wife, only not the version I knew. When she got home, I tried to sound casual. "Hey, I found an old ID while cleaning. Melissa Turner, ring any bells?" Her reaction was instant. She froze, then forced a laugh. "Oh, that's from my old job. We used fake names for clients sometimes." It was a ridiculous explanation, but she delivered it so smoothly I almost believed it. Almost. That night, I couldn't sleep. My brain kept replaying her face when I mentioned the name, the flicker of panic in her eyes, the one she tried to hide behind that practiced smile. I got up, opened my laptop, and started digging. I searched Melissa Turner alongside the city we used to live in. A few hits came up, nothing concrete, but one photo on an old event page looked eerily familiar. Same face, same smile. Different life. My chest tightened. Who exactly had I married? The woman beside me, peacefully asleep, had entire chapters I'd never read. I told myself I'd let it go, but I couldn't. Every time I looked at her, I saw a stranger wearing my wife's face. Something inside me shifted that night. Love mixed with suspicion, and for the first time, I realized I might not really know her at all. Once you start doubting someone, every little thing becomes evidence. The smallest inconsistencies start to feel like flashing warning signs. I couldn't unsee that ID, couldn't unhear her half-baked excuse, so I began quietly paying attention, tracking details I'd ignored before. One morning, while Megan was in the shower, her phone buzzed with a message preview, "Can't wait to see you again." No name, just a heart emoji. My pulse spiked, and I stared at the screen until the notification disappeared. I didn't unlock it, not yet. I wanted proof, not paranoia. That same week, I called one of her old coworkers, a woman she'd once mentioned in passing. I introduced myself casually, saying I was putting together a surprise for Megan's birthday and wanted to confirm where she used to work. The woman hesitated before replying, "You mean Melissa, right?" The name hit me like a punch. I kept my voice steady. "Melissa?" "Yeah," she said. "That's what she went by at the firm before she left. She said she was moving to another city with her boyfriend." I thanked her and hung up, my hands trembling. Boyfriend. Another city. Another name. That night, Megan came home smiling, carrying takeout like everything was fine. "I got your favorite," she said, placing the bag on the table. I forced a smile back, pretending everything was normal, but something in me broke quietly. I couldn't look at her the same way anymore. Her laughter, her touch, even the way she said my name, it all felt staged. I needed to know more. I wasn't going to accuse her without proof. So I decided to play along, smile, nod, act clueless, while I started digging deeper. Because now, this wasn't about love anymore. It was about the truth, and I was finally ready to find it. The confirmation came on a Wednesday afternoon. I was at work when my phone buzzed. A message from my coworker, Kevin. "Hey man, thought I saw your wife downtown. She was with some guy. Looked close." My chest tightened. Close? I called him immediately, trying to sound casual. "You sure it was her?" "Pretty sure," he said. "They were at that cafe on 5th. She was laughing, like really laughing." My hands went cold. Megan had told me she was working late. I couldn't focus the rest of the day. Every email, every clock tick blurred together until I couldn't take it anymore. I left the office early and drove to that cafe. By the time I got there, she was gone. But the waitress recognized her from the photo on my phone. "Yeah," she said. "She was here about an hour ago." With a tall guy, maybe mid-30s? They come in pretty often. The world around me dimmed, like sound had been sucked out of it. I thanked her, got back in my car, and just sat there staring through the windshield. The truth wasn't hiding anymore. It was sitting in plain sight, laughing in my face. That night I didn't say a word. I watched her walk around the house, humming, pretending everything was fine. My eyes followed every move. The way she checked her phone, the little smile that appeared when she read a message. When she fell asleep, I opened her purse and quietly took her phone. My hands were shaking as I opened her messages. There it was. "I miss you already." Last night was perfect. Photos, dates, even a nickname, Eam. That was it. The confirmation. She wasn't just lying about her past. She was lying about us. I sat there in the dark, her phone glowing in my hand, feeling something die quietly inside me, and in its place, something colder began to take root. I didn't confront her that night. I wanted to, but something in me stopped. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe I wanted to see just how deep her deception went. So instead, I decided to play along, to watch the performance unfold while I sat quietly in the audience. The next morning, she woke up cheerful, humming as she packed her bag. I poured her coffee, pretending nothing was wrong. "Big day at work?" I asked. "Yeah," she said, flashing that same smile that used to melt me. "Just a ton of meetings." I nodded, hiding the tremor in my hands. Meetings. Right. Over the next few days, I became an actor in my own marriage. I kissed her goodbye each morning, told her I loved her, and waited until she left. Then I started tracking. A friend from IT helped me access the shared location app she'd forgotten we still had connected. Her office was nowhere near the pin. Instead, she spent hours in another neighborhood, same location, same time frame, every time. At night, she'd come home smelling like perfume that wasn't hers. She'd toss her purse on the couch, take a quick shower, and crawl into bed beside me like nothing had happened. I'd lie there, stiff, pretending to sleep while my mind screamed. Once, I almost broke. She was lying next to me, scrolling through her phone, and I asked quietly, "Do you love me, Megan?" She froze, then looked at me with that too-practiced expression. "Of course I do." "Why would you even ask that?" Her voice was calm, but her eyes, they flickered just for a second. That's when I knew. She was good at lying, but not perfect, so I stayed quiet, colder each day, while she thought she was getting away with it. Because the longer I waited, the sharper my clarity became, and I was already planning what to do next. It all came crashing down on a Thursday. I had taken the day off from work, told Megan I had a client meeting out of town. Really, I just wanted to see what she'd do when she thought I was gone. Around 10 a.m., I parked my car a few blocks from her office building and waited. An hour passed. No sign of her. My stomach twisted tighter with every minute. Finally, I decided to walk in. The receptionist gave me a polite smile when I asked for Megan. "I'm sorry," she said. "She hasn't worked here for months." For months. I felt the air leave my lungs. "Are you sure?" I managed to ask. She nodded. She left back in February. Said she was moving to another company. But it was October. 8 months of pretending. 8 months of long hours, office stress, and work trips. My hands started shaking. I stumbled outside, my vision blurring as if the world was spinning too fast. I drove home, numb. Parked in the driveway. Stared at the house we built together. The one filled with memories that now felt like lies. I couldn't go inside. I just sat there gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles went white. Every flashback cut deeper. Our wedding vows, our laughter, her saying, "You're the only person I've ever truly trusted." It all felt grotesque now, like a beautifully wrapped box filled with rot. That night, she came home with her usual smile. "Hey, you're back early," she said, leaning in to kiss me. I stepped back. "Did you have a good day at work?" I asked, my voice cold. For the first time, she faltered. Her eyes flickered, her lips parted slightly, and I saw fear. That was the moment everything inside me broke. Love, hope, patience, it all disintegrated. And what replaced it was quiet, deadly quiet, the kind that comes right before something irreversible. After that day, something inside me shifted permanently. I didn't rage, I didn't scream, I just stopped feeling. It's strange how heartbreak doesn't always explode. Sometimes it freezes. I watched Megan move around the house like nothing had changed, still feeding me lies with the same confidence that used to make me feel safe. But now I was done listening. That night, after she fell asleep, I got up and sat in the living room, surrounded by the remnants of our life together. The framed photos, the wedding album, the little notes she used to leave in my lunchbox. They all felt like props in a play I never auditioned for. I opened my laptop and began saving copies of everything. Her messages, her fake work emails, the photos, the address she kept visiting. Every click of the mouse felt like a nail sealing the coffin of our marriage. The next morning, I called a divorce lawyer. His voice was calm, professional, detached. Exactly what I needed. "You've got more than enough grounds," he said after I explained everything. "If you want this to be quick, I can have papers ready within a week." "Make it 3 days," I said. When I hung up, I looked around the house one last time. It hit me how quiet it was when she wasn't pretending. The silence was heavy, but it felt cleaner, like breathing cold air after months of smoke. I didn't confront her. I didn't want a confession or apology. What could she possibly say that would make it hurt less? I decided my revenge wouldn't be loud. It would be final. For the next few days, I went through every motion like a ghost. She still smiled, kissed my cheek, told me she loved me before leaving for work. And I smiled back, thinking, "Enjoy it while it lasts, Megan," because soon she'd open a bag and find something she'd never see coming. The plan came to me in fragments. Quiet, deliberate thoughts that stitched themselves together as the days passed. I wanted her to feel the weight of what she'd done, not through anger or shouting, but through the kind of silence that makes your stomach drop. For 3 nights, after Megan fell asleep, I stayed up preparing. I gathered every document, her fake work emails, the messages with the man she'd been seeing, screenshots, timestamps, everything. I made copies for my lawyer and stored them safely on a flash drive. Then I started closing doors. I transferred the money from our joint account into my personal one, everything that was legally mine. I called the bank, canceled shared cards, and rerouted the mortgage to my name. Each step was mechanical, emotionless. I didn't even flinch when I packed away the wedding photos and hid my ring in the drawer. I had already accepted that Megan, the woman I thought I loved, was long gone. On the 4th night, I drafted a short letter. It wasn't dramatic, no long paragraphs or accusations. Just 1 page, typed neatly and folded beside the divorce papers. It ended with a single line. "You lied to me every day, so I'm giving you one honest truth. You've already lost everything." The next morning, I made her lunch like I used to. She smiled when I handed her the bag, completely unaware. "You're sweet," she said, kissing my cheek before walking out the door. I stood there, watching her leave, my hands steady for the first time in weeks. There was no satisfaction, no gloating. Just peace. Cold, still peace. By noon, she'd open that lunch bag expecting her sandwich and drink. Instead, she'd find the divorce papers, and the truth she'd buried finally staring back at her. And for the first time, I wouldn't be there to see her lie her way out of it. By the time she left that morning, everything was set in motion. I sat by the window, coffee in hand, watching her car disappear down the street. The house was still. I could almost feel the weight of the moment, like the silence before a storm you know will never touch you again. Around noon, my phone buzzed. Her name flashed across the screen. Megan. Then another text. "What is this?" Followed by, "Are you serious?" Then a call. I didn't answer. Another call came through, and another, each one shorter than the last. Then silence. I scrolled through the messages, shock, denial, rage, bargaining, all the stages of guilt laid out in real time. "We can talk about this." "You misunderstood. Please don't do this." But I had nothing left to say. I blocked her number, her email, every social platform we'd ever shared. The act was almost surgical, clean, final. I even deleted our wedding photos from my phone. Not in anger, but because they didn't belong to me anymore. They belonged to a lie. Later that day, my lawyer confirmed she had received the papers through official channels too. He chuckled softly. "You really handed them to her in her lunch bag?" "Seemed fitting," I said. "She's been feeding me lies for years." I figured I'd finally give her something real to chew on. That night, I went for a long drive. No destination, just me, the open road, and the hum of the engine. For the first time in months, I didn't feel trapped. I wasn't checking my phone or wondering where she was. I wasn't pretending to sleep beside a stranger. The world felt wide again. Quiet, yes, but honest. And in that silence, I realized something profound. Closure doesn't come from confrontation. It comes from walking away without needing to be understood. And I had finally done just that. It's been months since that day. But sometimes I still wake up expecting to hear her in the kitchen, humming, making coffee, pretending everything's normal. Then the reality settles in, and I remember. That chapter's over. What's left isn't sadness anymore. It's quiet acceptance. At first I struggled with the silence. The house felt too big, too empty. I'd catch myself reaching for my phone to text her something small, something meaningless, then stop mid-gesture. The habit of loving her was hard to break, but every time I resisted, it hurt a little less. Healing isn't sudden. It's a slow rebuilding of who you were before the damage. Friends told me she tried reaching out through mutual contacts. One even forwarded me a message she'd written, a mix of apologies and justifications. "I never meant to hurt him," she said. "I just got lost, but I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Some things don't deserve an audience anymore." I poured my energy into small, quiet acts of living again. Early morning runs. Cooking meals for one. Reconnecting with people I'd pushed away while I was busy trying to save a marriage that was never real. Piece by piece, I found myself again. Not the version molded by her lies, but the man I was before her. Sometimes people ask if I regret not confronting her face to face. I don't. Closure didn't come from hearing her admit what she did. It came from walking away without letting her rewrite the story. I realized forgiveness doesn't mean letting someone back in. It means freeing yourself from the weight they left behind. I still have that lunch bag, folded neatly in a drawer, not as a memory of pain, but as proof of strength. Because sometimes the most powerful revenge isn't destruction, it's peace, and mine has never been louder.